One, two, three, chapter 31. As I have mentioned the Stoics, I must take some notice of Quintus Aelius Turburo, the grandson of Lucius Paulus, who made his appearance at the time we are speaking of. He was never esteemed an orator, but was a man of the most rigid virtue and strictly conformable to the doctrine he professed, but in truth he had not sufficient ease and polish. In his triumvirate, he declared, contrary to the opinion of Publius Africanus, his uncle, that the augurs had no right of exemption from sitting in the courts of justice, and as in his temper, so in his manner of speaking, he was harsh, unpolished, and austere, on which account he could never raise himself to the honorable posts which were enjoyed by his ancestors. But he was a brave and steady citizen and a warm opposer of Gracchus, as appears from Gracchus's oration against him. We have likewise some of Tiburo's speeches against Gracchus. He was not indeed a shining orator, but he was a learned and very skillful disputant. I find, said Brutus, that the case is much the same among us as with the Greeks, and that the Stoics in general are very judicious at an argument which they conduct by certain rules of art, and are likewise very neat and exact in their language. But if we take them from this to speak in public, they make a poor appearance. Cato, however, must be accepted. Accepted? Yeah, in whom, though as rigid a Stoic as ever existed, I could not wish for a more consummate degree of eloquence. I can likewise discover a moderate share of it in Fannius, not so much in Rutilius, but none at all in Tiburo. True, said I, and we may easily account for it. Their whole attention was so closely confined to the study of logic that they never troubled themselves to acquire the free, diffusive, and variegated style which is so necessary for a public speaker. But your uncle, you doubtless know, was wise enough to borrow only from the Stoics, which they were able to furnish for his purpose, the art of reasoning. But for the art of speaking, he had recourse to the masters of rhetoric and exercised himself in the manner they directed. If, however, we must be indebted for everything to the philosophers, the peripatetic discipline is, in my mind, much the most proper to form our language. For which reason, my Brutus, I the more approve your choice in attaching yourself to a sect, I mean the philosophers of the old academy, in whose system a just and accurate way of reasoning is enlivened by a perpetual sweetness and fluency of expression. But even the delicate and flowing style of the peripatetics and academics is not sufficient to complete an orator, nor yet can he be complete without it. For as the language of the Stoics is too close and contracted to suit the ears of common people, so that of the latter is too diffusive and luxuriant for a spirited contest in the forum or a pleading at the bar. Who had a richer style than Plato? The philosophers tell us that if Jupiter himself was to converse in Greek, he would speak like him, who also was more nervous than Aristotle, who's sweeter than Theophrastus. We are told that even Demosthenes attended the lectures of Plato and fond of reading what he published, which indeed is sufficiently evident from the turn and majesty of his language, and he himself has expressly mentioned it in one of his letters. But the style of this excellent orator is, notwithstanding, much too violent for the academy, and that of the philosophers is too mild and placid for the forum. 32. I shall now, with your leave, proceed to the age and merits of the rest of the Roman orators. Nothing, said Atticus, for I can safely answer for my friend Brutus, would please us better. Curo, then, said I, was nearly of the age I have just mentioned, and celebrated speaker, whose genius may be easily ascertained from his orations. For among several others, we have a noble speech of his for Servius Fulvus in a prosecution for incest. When we were children, it was esteemed the best then extant, but now it is almost overlooked among the numerous performances of the same kind which have been lately published. I am very sensible, replied I am very sensible, replied Brutus, to whom we are obliged for the numerous performances you speak of. And I am equally sensible, said I, who is the person you intend, for I have at least done a service to my young countrymen by introducing a loftier and more embellished way of speaking than was used before, and perhaps I have also done some harm, because after mine appeared, the speeches of our predecessors began to be neglected by most people, though never by me, for I can assure you I always prefer them to my own. But you must reckon me, said Brutus, among the most people, though I now see from your recommendation that I have a great many books to read, of which before I had very little opinion. But this celebrated oration, said I, is the prosecution for incest, is in some places excessively peril, and what is said in it of the passion of love, the inefficacy of questioning by tortures, and the danger of trusting to common heresy is indeed pretty enough, but would be insufferable to the chastened ears of the moderns, and to the people who are justly distinguished for the solidity of their knowledge. He likewise wrote several other pieces, spoke a number of good orations, and was certainly an eminent pleader. Ugh. So that I much wonder, considering how long he lived and the character he bore, that he was never preferred to the consulship. All right.